What's going on, everybody? It's the one and only One Qua, and we are back once again with another how to build tutorial. This week I'm joined by Pluto, and we're going to be teaching you how to build a redwood forest in this 3-part series. Yesterday we showed you how to make the trees and plants. Today we're going to go over how to make the terrain and rock assets, and tomorrow we'll show you how to combine the two to create the final forest. We don't have a right or wrong order to create these models, so feel free to jump around and use what you need. So let's hop into the terrain and get started. To begin the handmade terrain, we used the wireframe method to outline a hill with podzol, then used diorite and regular stone to fill in the hollow parts. In the shallow sections, we used soul sand to indicate patches of mud and grass. On this scale, we tried to outline the diorite with stone. However, if this were a larger terrain, you would want to base your coloring on steepness to obtain a natural look, which may mean using more types of blocks. On this terrain scale, we were able to color as we built the terrain. However, if you plan on building on a much larger scale, it may be better to create the terrain first and then color it once you have an idea of the full shape.
Alright guys, welcome back. Before we start making the terrain, let's talk commands. The commands we'll be using are from Voxel Sniper and World Edit. The first commands from Voxel Sniper are going to be a shaping command /BEB lift, which means it'll blend as it does a lift erosion. And it will only push the blocks towards or away from the direction you're facing, depending on if you're using the arrow or the gunpowder. Then we'll be using the /B_BB, and this smooths out the land that we'll make with the lift brush. And finally, to change the size of these brushes, you'll type /B_number, and whatever number you put will be the radius of your brush. For World Edit, we are going to be using an angle replacement tool. The commands we'll be focusing on will be /replace /number D number D block, which will replace all the blocks you selected between a range of degrees, up to 90 degrees. This is what the D's stand for. We will use the command to help color the terrain based on its steepness. And lastly, we will use a BR sphere command, /BR sphere block, block, number, with the last number being the size of the brush, with a mask, block, in order to color the grass and clean up the terrain. We will be putting the block we want to paint and the block we want to mask as our 2 blocks in the sphere command, and then set the mask to the block or blocks we want to replace. For the terrain we made with tools, before we started, we replaced the grass with stone in order to have a clean starting palette. To start forming the terrain, we'll use the lift brush with a size of 5. In this case, the arrow will be pulling the land or lifting it, and the gunpowder will push it relative to where you are. With this, go around and get a good outline for where the rocks and the cliffs should be. Once the outline is relatively close to the height and shape you want, you'll use the blend ball to help smooth it out a little bit. Try not to use this tool too much because it can lead to the terrain looking flat and unnaturally smooth if you're not careful.
Keep in mind the scale you're using for your trees, plants, and other assets. We decided to use around 20 blocks of elevation to give it the atmosphere of a deep mountainous forest, but of course there are many other possible variations. We also decided to create rocks as separate assets that we can place in during the final video for atmosphere. We'll show you how to make them after coloring the terrain.
To color the land, we are going to use our angle replace commands. We ended up having to do these in a very specific order for it to work right. If you don't want to worry about order, you can always use a global mask to only replace a specific block. This is the order we did the commands in. First, replace from 0 to 85 degrees with polished diorite. Then, from 0 to 75 degrees, replace all the blocks with regular stone. Then, after, replace from 0 to 68 degrees with podzol. Then, from 0 to 50 degrees with dirt. And finally, replace from 0 to 25 degrees with soul sand. Simply put, we used a process to replace blocks from the largest angles to the smallest angles. However, this requires knowing the palette of blocks you're going to use ahead of time. Since we didn't want the grass to be very abundant, for the green grassy parts, we used our BR sphere command for wool, soul sand, and dirt, and then masked only the soul sand and dirt. Then, change the first number, 3513, to dark green wool, to a 2 for regular grass. Try to put this grass mostly next to the dark green wool we just placed. Then use the same BR sphere method to add in some more stone on any steep spots that didn't get changed with the angle replace commands.
Most of the coloring is done with the replace commands. It's okay to play around with the angles and try new palettes. In fact, we recorded this terrain numerous times to get it to where it is. It might feel tedious, but the last few steps for the minor coloring and touch-ups are the most important steps when it comes to getting a rich terrain. Now let's move on to the rocks. To make the rocks by hand, start by using the wireframing method, only this time you'll want to make it floating in the air. This allows us to work on the underside of the rock. Fill in each of the gaps with stone and a little bit of dirt and/or grass.
And finally, to make a rock with voxel, first use the brush ball with a size of 5 to make a quick starting ball of stone. Then use the lift brush again to mold it into a rock shape. Then use the World Edit sphere brush again and a mask to color it. Depending on the size of the rock, you could also color it by hand. And that just about sums up all the building for this video.
I hope you have enjoyed this video. Remember to check out yesterday's video on trees and plants, as well as the final video tomorrow. Also, we have a public Discord. On there, we would love to see pictures of your builds and give advice on them. The link will be in the description. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the thumbs up and turn on notifications by clicking on the bell. Tell us what you would like to see next in the comments section below, and we will see you in the next video.